Right now, somewhere on Earth, someone born before your grandparents is still alive, still walking, still laughing. Jeanne Calment, a woman from France, lived to 122 years old. She outlived her own daughter. She outlived her grandson. She met people who told her first-hand stories about the Eiffel Tower being built. So, could you actually live to 100? Let's set the rules first. No science fiction. No miracle pills. No fasting until you disappear. Just what the actual research says happens inside a human body that makes it a full century. Because the answer isn't luck. It isn't even mostly genetics. And once you hear the real numbers, you may never look at your daily habits the same way again. Here's the first surprise. Most people assume long life is written into your DNA before you're even born. Locked in, unchangeable, something you either won the lottery for or didn't. But that isn't what the data shows. Danish researcher Kåre Christensen led one of the largest twin studies ever conducted on human aging. He compared identical twins, who share essentially the same genetic code, against fraternal twins, who don't. If genetics controlled everything, identical twins should die at almost exactly the same age. They don't. Christensen's research found that genetics accounts for roughly 20 to 30% of how long a person lives. The rest, the majority, comes from environment and behavior, choices made one ordinary day at a time. Let that sink in for a second. 70% of your lifespan is still being written, right now, today. Which means the real question isn't what genes you were handed, it's what you do next. So where do the extra decades actually come from? Let's go looking for them. Stage 1 of the mystery takes us to 5 places on Earth, where people don't just survive into old age, they thrive there, casually, almost without trying. Researcher Dan Buettner spent years mapping these regions for National Geographic and named them the Blue Zones: Okinawa, Japan; Sardinia, Italy; Nicoya, Costa Rica; Icaria, Greece; and Loma Linda, California. In these places, living to 100 isn't rare. It's almost expected. Grandmothers in Okinawa are still gardening at 95. Men in Sardinia are still herding sheep across steep mountain slopes in their 90s. Elders in Icaria are still dancing at village festivals well past the age most of us assume dancing stops. Here's the twist. None of them are doing intense workouts. None of them are counting calories or lining up supplements on a kitchen counter. So what are they actually doing instead? Moving constantly but gently. Walking to the market instead of driving. Kneading bread by hand. Climbing hills instead of taking a car. Not as exercise, but simply because that's how the day naturally unfolds around them. Their bodies never get the chance to sit still for long stretches. And it turns out that single pattern matters more than any gym membership ever could. But movement is only stage 2 of the puzzle. Stage 3 takes us inside the body itself, down to the very tips of your chromosomes. Nobel Prize-winning biologist Elizabeth Blackburn discovered something remarkable about tiny protective caps, called telomeres. Picture them like the plastic tips on the ends of a shoelace, stopping the fabric from fraying apart. Every time your cells divide, those telomeres shorten just slightly. Shorten too much, over too many years, and cells stop dividing properly. That's aging happening at a microscopic level, one division at a time, invisible, but relentless. Here's what shocked researchers when they dug deeper. Chronic stress physically shortens telomeres faster than normal aging alone. Poor, broken sleep shortens them faster too. But strong social connection, real friendships, a genuine sense of belonging, actually slows that shortening down. Your loneliness, or your community, isn't just an emotional experience. It's a biological one. It's written directly into your cells, whether you can feel it happening or not. So we now have movement and we have connection. Now for the piece almost everyone gets wrong. Diet. Every blue zone eats completely differently from the next. Okinawans favor purple sweet potatoes and tofu. Sardinians eat whole grain bread and pecorino cheese made from grass-fed sheep. Nicoyans eat beans and corn tortillas nearly every single day of the year. There is no single magic food hiding in any of these diets. But there is one shared pattern stretching across every one of these regions. They eat until they're roughly 80% full. Not stuffed, not clearing the plate out of habit. 80%, then they stop. Okinawans even have a phrase for it, spoken quietly before meals like a small ritual, hara hachibu. That one modest habit, repeated across tens of thousands of meals over an entire lifetime, adds up to a body that never carries the constant metabolic strain of chronic overeating. And it isn't only what's on the plate that matters, it's who's around the table. In nearly every blue zone, meals are rarely eaten alone or in a hurry. They stretch out. They involve multiple generations sitting together, conversation layered over the food, no phones, no rushing back to a desk. That unhurried pace itself appears to matter almost as much as the food. Digestion slows, portion awareness improves naturally, without anyone counting anything, and the simple act of eating becomes one more daily dose of the connection that Blackburn's telomere research already flagged as protective. Now here's where the story escalates, because diet and movement alone still don't explain the full picture. Researchers at the Max Planck Institute for Demographic Research, led by longevity scientist James Voppel, tracked something almost nobody expected going in. People with a strong sense of purpose, a real reason to get out of bed each morning, showed measurably lower rates of chronic disease and dramatically longer average lifespans than people who lacked one. In Okinawa, they call that reason ikigai. In Nicoya, plan de vida. Both phrases translate roughly to reason for living, not a job title, not a hobby to fill an afternoon, a reason. Grandparents raising grandchildren, farmers who still feel needed by their own land, elders who remain woven into the center of their community instead of quietly set aside from it. But there's a fourth stage to this mystery, and it's the one modern medicine almost missed entirely. It isn't about what centenarians do, it's about what they don't do. They don't retire in the way most of the modern world understands the word. There's no finish line where work simply stops and the rest of life becomes waiting. In Okinawa and Nicoya, there often isn't even a native word for retirement the way English uses it. People shift what they do, not whether they do anything at all. An 85-year-old fisherman becomes the one who mends the nets. A 90-year-old farmer becomes the one who teaches the grandchildren which plants need shade. Researchers studying these populations noticed something else too. Stress exists in every blue zone, the same as anywhere else on Earth. Nobody is claiming these are stress-free paradises. But the difference is recovery. Sardinian shepherds still worry about weather and money and family, exactly like anyone would, but their days include built-in wind-down rituals, an afternoon rest, a slow evening meal with extended family, a short nap in the heat of the day. Their nervous systems get regular permission to downshift. In much of the modern world, stress switches on in the morning and simply never gets the signal to switch back off, not until sleep forces it, and sometimes not even then. That chronic, unbroken stress response floods the body with cortisol day after day, and elevated cortisol has been linked in multiple studies to faster cellular aging, weakened immune defenses, and higher rates of the exact chronic diseases that quietly end most lives well before 100. So the blue zones aren't succeeding because life there is easier. They're succeeding because life there includes built-in exits from stress, several times a day, every single day, without needing to schedule a vacation to find one. So which factor actually wins here? Movement, diet, connection, purpose, or recovery from stress? Here's the twist the data actually reveals. It's never one factor working alone. It's the compounding of all four together, repeated daily, for decades, without a single dramatic effort required on any given day. No 100-year-old ever trained for a marathon to get there. They simply never stopped walking to the well. They never stopped showing up for dinner with neighbors. They never lost their reason to wake up tomorrow. That's the real answer, hiding underneath all the research. Living to 100 isn't a single decision made once. It's thousands of tiny ones, compounding quietly while you're busy living the rest of your life. Now bring it back to you. You probably don't live in Sardinia. You likely don't herd sheep across a mountainside or grow your own sweet potatoes in a backyard garden. But the underlying mechanics are still sitting right there, hidden inside your own ordinary week. A short walk after dinner instead of the couch. A phone call to an old friend instead of another few minutes of scrolling. Stopping a meal before the plate is fully empty. Finding one small reason, today, that makes tomorrow worth getting up for. None of it requires becoming an entirely different person overnight. It just requires repetition. The same way flowing water shapes solid stone. Not through force, not through one dramatic moment, but through years of quiet, consistent contact. Think about what a single ordinary Tuesday could look like if it quietly borrowed from all 5 stages at once. A walk instead of a scroll first thing in the morning. A lunch you actually stop eating before the plate is empty. A short pause in the afternoon where your body is allowed to downshift, even for 10 minutes, instead of running hot from sunrise to midnight. A dinner shared with someone instead of eaten alone in front of a screen. And somewhere in that day, one small task that reminds you that someone or something still needs you tomorrow. None of those 5 things sound dramatic on their own. That's exactly the point. The people living past 100 aren't running a different race than everyone else. They're running the exact same race, at a pace that never asks their body for a single sudden sprint. Scientists like Christensen, Blackburn, and Vopel didn't find a secret formula locked away in some laboratory. They found something far more available than that. They found that longevity was hiding in plain sight the entire time, inside the shape of an ordinary day, repeated with just enough intention. So could you actually live to 100? The science says the odds are shaped far less by the genes you were handed at birth, and shaped far more by what you choose to do with an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Somewhere, right now, a person is walking slowly to the market, sitting down to a meal they'll stop eating before they're full, and heading home afterward to people who are genuinely waiting for them. That's not luck. That might just be the closest thing to a blueprint we've got. Not a rulebook carved in stone, but a pattern, quietly repeating itself in 5 very different corners of the world, waiting to see if you'll repeat it too.